Have you ever wondered this when playing Helldivers 2? Are we the bad guys? Now, obviously the in-universe answer would be face the wall. But I'm sure most of us players have questioned that Super Earth may not be on the right side of history, if not already knowing that as a fact. So, how did we get here? How did the Planet for Humanity become the symbol of a propaganda-fueled autocracy worshipping militarism, ideological supremacy, and zero tolerance for coexistence with anything that's not us? Well, I think I have an answer for you. Germany won. To begin with our journey, we don't have to look far. Welcome aboard Super Destroyer, my fellow frozen Helldivers. To your left side, you shall see the might of Super Earth materialize in the form of our cutting-edge, state-of-the-art, game-changing arsenal. While our top scientists and engineers are busy improving on inferior technology from our galactic adversaries to better improve your combat efficiency, the Helldivers who desire a more traditional approach of how to let down the range can always rely on German engineering? You see, the very first support weapon you get right after completing the training in Helldivers 2 is the MG43, a direct nod to the famous or rather infamous Maschinengewehr 42, also known as MG42. Also known as Hitler's buzzsaw, the in-game MG43 shares many similar characteristics with its real historical counterpart. Both weapons are support weapons with a high rate of fire, a side-loading feeding tray, and a brutal industrial aesthetic. But more importantly, is their shared prefix, MG. You might think the shared MG prefix is just a historical coincidence. After all, several countries use MG to designate their machine guns. But in reality, they either adopted German weapons, have direct military ties to Germany, or hold licensing agreements with German manufacturers. Or, of course, their Germany itself, which still use MG as the official designation for its machine gun to this day. So, what about other weapons? Other than the MG43 and the MP98 Knight submachine gun, and the Killzone weapons, because let's be real here, it's a dead game set in a different universe. Rest in peace. All the other weapons cannot possibly have any ties with the German military equipment designation system, right? Well, different countries have different weapon prefix system, and this may allow you to quickly identify the country of origin. For example, if something starts with M and a number, it's US military. If something has a number and mark, it's from British Commonwealth system. If it starts with type and a year, it's Chinese or Japanese. And if it starts with C, that's Canadian for you, bud. However, those naming conventions are usually not descriptive. For example, you can put the M18A1 Claymore on a Roomba to create a death machine, but you cannot put an M240 on it because that poor little thing has no hope of handling that recoil.
My name is Gustavo, but you can call me Sus.
And why does everyone's favorite pinning machine has the same designation as a main battle tank? The answer is simple. The M stands for model and the number is just a number. The combination itself has little to no meaning if you don't already know what they're referring to. This is the same for most of the war's infantry weapon designations, with the exceptions being Russia and Germany. Russia does have descriptive prefix for their infantry weapons, the most well-known one being AK stands for
Автомат Калашникова,
which is Kalashnikov automatic rifle in English. The SKS translates to English is Simonov self-loading carbine, and RPK is Kalashnikov light machine gun. The SVD is Dragunov sniper rifle, and there's more. But the trend is pretty obvious. Russian prefix loves to have the designer's name in there alongside of the weapon's category or function, which we see none of in Helldivers 2. So, what about the German way of naming guns? In World War II, Germany already had the most systematic, consistent, and clear functional prefixes that show exactly what a weapon is. MG or Maschinengewehr is machine gun, MP or Maschinenpistol is submachine gun, G or Gewehr is rifle, P is pistol, and STG is assault rifle. And if we take a look at Helldivers 2's weapons, almost all of them follow this naming convention. For example, ARs are assault rifles, the Adjudicator, which is BR-14, is definitely a battle rifle. The APW-1 designation for the anti-material rifle probably stands for armor-piercing weapon, FLAM stands for flamethrowers, AC is autocannon, RL is rocket launcher, FAF is likely to be fire and forget system, LAS are laser weapon, PLAS are plasma weapons, and there are more, but I'm sure you get the point already. I can already hear some of you Royal Helldivers screaming at the top of your lungs. What about the R2124 Constitution? The ceremonial rifle based on the American Enfield M1917 design that's given to every citizen upon turning 16. Why is this gun, inspired by literally a gun called United States Rifle 30 cal model of 1917, being one of the most iconic weapons in the Helldivers universe? I do have some explanation for that, but it will require some additional information to be laid out first, so please consider subscribing for part 2 because honestly it really requires some groundwork to be done before I can even attempt to explain that. Other than the naming scheme for weapons, we can also get some hint of the German connections to the weapon designs. One of the most popular and arguably the most visually impressive offensive stratagem that's a nightmare of artillery players is the Eagle 500 kg bomb. Note that it's not 500 freedom unit, but kilograms. I should clarify that after World War II, 500 kg ordnance is really not that rare. Both China and Russia and many non-US allied countries have modern version of the 500 kg bomb. In fact, while I'm researching for this video, there are claims that Russia has used a 500 kg bomb in Ukraine, causing widespread damage. But in terms of the origin and widespread usage of the unguided 500 kg bomb like the one we see in-game, Germany would be the biggest inspiration. In fact, the very first combat active 500 kg bomb is designed by the Germans. The SC-500 general-purpose bomb was used extensively by the Luftwaffe during World War II, with many variants being developed as well. It entered operational use in 1939, with the Heinkel HE-111 medium bomber being one of Luftwaffe's initial platform carrying it. The most infamous use of it would probably be the Blitz and Operation Steinbock, aka Baby Blitz. Both are German bombing campaigns against Britain, and the aftermath of the use of 500 kg bomb is still ongoing until this day. There were two unexploded SC-500 bombs being found just in 2024. One was found in a garden in Plymouth, England, and another one was found in Newtoners, Northern Ireland. Famous or infamous, the 500 kg bomb is a German classic. And its presence in the game really makes you wonder where the military standards developed from. Another pretty German weapon in the game is the GP20 Ultimatum. With GP probably stands for Grenade Pistol, the weapon bears heavy resemblance to the World War II Germany's Assault Pistol. Both weapons being a pistol-sized, shoulder-firing weapon capable of sending an explosive grenade to, well, not very far. The real thing used in World War II is way more interesting though. There's a video from Royal Armor's YouTube channel with Jonathan Ferguson doing a great job explaining it, but in terms of the weapon's most eye-catching feature, which is the exposed oval-shaped warhead at the front of the barrel, it really can't be found anywhere else. Even the Russian GP family of muzzle-loaded grenade launchers that shares the same English prefix as the in-game weapon don't have any ammunition that looks remotely like a mini warhead. The practical reason for why we don't have a light weapon like this today is probably because having a boom pistol with exposed warhead dangling around that doesn't shoot very far is probably not a good idea, especially when grenade launchers and RPG exist. And to be fair, the German assault pistol has many other types of projectile it can fire, such as flares, with anti-tank explosive pretty much being an afterthought. This really makes you wonder if certain successful military application heritage was there to power this weapon through centuries of renewed designs and military trials so that it can wreak havoc on the Second Galactic War. Another weapon design that's proven to be less practical but extremely fascinating, and more importantly to this video, iconized by its use in popular Germany World War II weapon, is the toggle locking mechanism. Now, I know this mechanism is not designed or firstly used by the Germans. It was invented in the late 19th century by American-born, British inventor Aaron Maxim, and it's actually what made the world's first automatic machine gun, the Maxim gun, possible at firing continuously. But for the Maxim gun and many toggle locking weapons, the mechanism is usually concealed, unlike what we all know is the most famous toggle locking gun, the German Luger P08. Germany already had target-locking weapon in World War I, which is the MG08 heavy machine gun. But like the Maxim gun, the mechanism is concealed inside the weapon and is moving downward when firing. And in World War II, almost all target-locking weapons that are not heavy machine gun are discontinued. Technically, the Swiss did have target-locking submachine gun, but due to them being neutral throughout the war, they never saw any actions and you probably never seen or heard about them in popular media. And that left us with the Luger P08, the elegant weapon using the distinctive knee-joint stealth toggle. It was used by the Wehrmacht, Luftwaffe, and SS unit, and is seen as a World War II Germany military icon even during the war, since many Allied soldiers treated it as a trophy weapon. However, it is not really a good gun due to its high production cost, and having a lot of small moving parts made it more prone to jamming and is less reliable in mud, sand, or extreme cold environments. Not mentioning it demands for higher quality ammo when compared with other similar small arms. In our real history, Germany used the much cheaper and easier to mass-produce Walther P38 to replace the Luger P08 starting in late 1939. However, consider this is after the Battle of Stalingrad and the all-out doomed attempt to invade Soviet Russia, which many will view as the turning point for World War II Germany. If the war was in Germany's favor and the resources were not stretched as seen, perhaps the development and the adaptation of the target-locking mechanism will be more prevalent. I'm not saying target-locking guns are going to become more practical in reality, even if they have seen more use. Just trying to make the same argument for the big warhead grenade pistol. You must have some heritage in order for such an impractical design to survive for more than 100 years. And survived it did, at least in the Helldivers 2 universe. If you look closely, or just look at anywhere that has an autocannon, you will see it. The AC-8 autocannon, the AAC-8 autocannon Sentry, the Axo-49 Emancipator exosuit all utilize the classic knee-joint target-locking mechanism for the autocannon. And my fellow Helldivers, what else is everywhere? Is it freedom, democracy, liberty, bugs, and bugs? All those are good answers, my little Helldivers. But no, just look at what you're wearing, is the skull. The skull is everywhere. Skull on weapons? Check. Skull on capes? Check. Skull on Bigfoot robot? Check. Skull on difficulties? Check. Skull on bots? Obliterated. The Helldiver symbol is the skull. You know who else loves skull as a symbol? The Nazis. The now goofy-looking death's head is one of the most prevalent symbols for the SS, also known as the really bad guys in World War II Germany who committed the worst crimes. According to a writing by the SS leader and the chief planner of the Holocaust, Heinrich Himmler himself, the skull symbol had the following meaning. The skull is the reminder that you shall always be willing to put yourself at stake for the life of the whole community. And guess whose life is for Super Earths? Yes, it's the Helldivers. The symbolism of the skull has been carried over to the Second Galactic War. It represents loyalty unto death, the fearlessness, and a kind of sinister mysticism, and perhaps the aestheticization of violence, which is something that hasn't changed for centuries in the Helldivers universe. And with that, it is finally time to talk about how did we get here. The history of Super Earths before the First Galactic War is heavily censored. But one thing we know for sure is that before the threat from outer space was present, war has never been a rare occurrence on what will eventually become the Super Earth. The most important war before the birth of managed democracy and the founding of Federation of Super Earths is the Last Great War. The Last Great War was a global, apocalyptic conflict that occurred on Super Earths before its unification under the current regime. It involved mass destruction, likely from nuclear, chemical, and/or experimental weapons, which left much of the planet in ruins and wastelands. Entire nations were annihilated, and human civilization nearly collapsed. In the aftermath, the survivors formed a neo-authoritarian world government, Super Earth, ruled by the ideology of managed democracy. The war is now used as a cautionary tale to justify strict control, mandatory military service, and the suppression of dissent. However, the true details are obscured by propaganda, and most citizens only know the war through a heavily censored, state-approved version of history. In terms of the timeline, we know very little about the Last Great War. Certain wiki article believes the last Great War ended before 2016 because of the M2016 Constitution from Helldivers 1. However, the M2016 Constitution has largely been retconned in Helldivers 2, with its new name being R2124 Constitution. And the original name in Helldivers 1 is named that way likely because the weapon was given to all players for free in the Liberty Day 2016 update of the game. What we can know for sure is the last Great War ended before the first Galactic War in 2044, at which point Super Earth was already formed. This gave us plenty of room to speculate what the last Great War is. The Great War, as we know in our timeline, is the First World War. The existence of the last Great War implies the existence of the first one, which probably didn't deviate much from real history. However, it's interesting that the last war humanity fought among themselves is called the Last Great War, not World War III, IV, or V. The possibility of such naming scheme could imply that there were many great global conflicts within about a century, which is not that likely considering the majority of population everywhere will not fare so well in frequent fighting, leading to the de-escalation from within the countries involved in the conflict. This theory is based on the fact that there are no mentioning of the Second World War in the Helldivers universe, but we see its influence everywhere. For example, the fascist overtone of Super Earth, including its uniforms, military salutes, authoritarian state structure, draw clear inspiration from World War II era regimes, especially Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. I want to stress that fascism was not only culturally acceptable all the way until World War II, it was represented everywhere at the time. How History Works video titled WTF Actually Is Fascism did a great job illustrating just how widespread and acceptable fascism was until the defeat of the Axis power, and more importantly, how this ideology changed over time, since we can safely assume that the ideology of Super Earth evolved from the ever-shifting doctrines of fascism. It stands in stark contrast to how this political ideology is treated as a taboo in all reality. Therefore, it is not unreasonable to speculate that the Second World War may not have ended in the way we knew it, or perhaps it was halted but never truly resolved. And this possibility might be more plausible than you think. Just take a look at Korea. Yes, I'm talking about both North and South Korea. In our history, the Korean War, being arguably one of the most overlooked conflicts in history, never truly ended. The armistice halted the fighting but did not result in a peace treaty. As a result, North and South Korea are still technically at war to this day. They are in a prolonged ceasefire, not a state of peace. People can live in relatively peaceful time while being at war, just like how citizens of both North and South Korea are. It is possible that World War II never truly ended, but due to key events drifted to a different outcome when compared with our timeline, the Nazi Germany was able to claim some territory while maintaining a ceasefire with the Allied countries. This will have a huge impact on the world's political, economic, and technological development. The fascist factions were never heavily stigmatized as being the villain of history, and there's no victor to write the history yet. In terms of economic, assuming Germany and its ally was able to claim some of the occupied territories, Germany could recover from its costly war economic and overcome the debt crisis due to new resource, manpower, and potential international trade. The most fascinating change would undoubtedly be the technological development. Since Germany never lost World War II, they were able to keep most of their proprietary technology without losing talents to the United States and Soviets like what happened in our history after Germany's surrender. But even with the knowledge of World War II lasted way longer and eventually become the most destructive escalation on planet Earth, we still have many unanswered questions. Next video, I'll explore the reason behind diverse population on Super Earth despite, coming from Nazi Germany, the R2124 Constitution, which is going to be a significant plot in this Germany Super Earth story, and the other interesting facts about Super Earth and how Nazi Germany has survived and became managed democracy. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give the subscribe button a little love tap if you will. Let me know if I got anything completely wrong or if you have other perspective on this theory. I'm not a weapon or history expert, so if you have a better idea, please do let me know. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Here's me petting my cat. Bye.